That's great.
We are live. Welcome everyone to Rule Zero. This is not only my first time being on the panel, but these crazy guys thought it'd be a great idea to let me threw me under the bus. Oh, look here, Rollo's here.
Oh.
Oh man.
I like how Paul starts live. Like he starts it at 11:30 Eastern.
Hey,
he's a newbie.
Very punctual. He's very punctual.
If you guys didn't know, my name's Paul Bauer. I host the Come On Man podcast where I post weekly episodes every Monday morning and have awesome guests every week to help men level up and get better with women. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. So I want to give a quick shout out to Daniel Bell for sending me that opening clip. He sent me I thought that was the perfect way to open it up. Another quick shout out to Will Stevenson III. He put together a Rule Zero tracker spreadsheet. It has
thank you very much.
Bringing great shame.
Someone would take the time to do that. So that's impressive. Thought it deserved a shout out. All right, joining me today are Rule Zero veterans. We have the youngest, oldest guy on the internet, Aaron Clary.
He's a lot older after the Vegas show in Access Vegas.
Oh my God, yeah. My dad watched that. He was laughing his ass off. He thought that was the funniest thing he's seen.
Oh, geez.
That was funny. I watched that too, and I was just like, oh man. Like Clary just seems like he's already done the show.
That's what everybody was saying. Like, oh, Clary's out of here. He's the voice of reason in all of this.
That was a good episode. We have the Godfather of Red Pill, Rollo Tomasi, the purveyor of violence, John Fitch, and I think Paul Benjamin's going to show up a little bit later. So.
Yep.
And just so you guys know, I'm sicker than a dog. So if I feel ill, I'm gonna. Why? Do you know someone else who got sick?
Are you you're still in Vegas right now?
Yeah.
Let's see if you are. Yeah. Let's see. The first time I was out in Vegas, I flew back and I was like sick as a dog for like 2 weeks after that. And then let's see, I've been there a couple times and I think I've avoided it, but Vegas is like a petri dish, man. Like there's so many people from outside of the area, and the drummer in my band right now is really sick too, and I think it's because he was just in Vegas not too long ago and he come back. But
yeah, there's something going around here.
Is what it is. Yeah. Take your vitamins before you go to Vegas if you're planning to go.
I think Ryan was saying he wasn't feeling well either, and he's not going to make it today. So
a lot of people are. I just went through it. I had, God damn man, I don't know what it is, but like it took probably like seriously like 2.5 weeks to get over it.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that. I was kind of hoping this would be a 5-day deal, but I don't want it to be 2 weeks. It'll be horrible.
Yep.
So we are going to be discussing how to deal with toxic family and friends over the holidays. Obviously, the easy answer, I think, is to just cut those people out of your lives, but I don't think that's a realistic solution for some guys.
I still have Aaron in my life, so what are you going to do?
Wow. Hit him while he's down a week. Okay.
I can't see it. 12 years now. I can't seem to get rid of this guy.
Well, let's start with that, Rollo. We just had Thanksgiving. Did you have a big Thanksgiving?
I do Thanksgiving with my in-laws, more or less. My mom and my dad have been gone for a while now. So my mom passed away in 2020. And my dad's been gone since like 2010. So my family just consists of me and my brother and his family, and then my wife's family. So usually what we do is we go, we spend like Thanksgiving with my wife's folks, and then I spend Christmas with my brother. So we don't have like these big giant family gatherings. So I know what I'm getting into every time I go to a gathering of some sort. So there's never any like really like conflict as far as like politics and everything. I know that that's like a popular thing to like throw out there right now. I think that's probably what you wanted to get into as far as now that we have this moment to sort of collect and gather together that like ideologies and like, conflicting, I don't know, political parties or whatever is going to like be an inevitability in all of this. And I think that that's, in some cases, I'm pretty sure that that's true, but I think it's probably more overblown than anything else. At least as far as I'm concerned, this is my personal experience, but I have a very small family and I know people experience this, but I will say this. When you told me you were going to do this topic, I thought it was interesting because, I have like my in-laws are very, very opinionated on my wife's father and his second wife. And she's very much a follower of the, let's say, the traditional conservative viewpoint. And like we don't, lock horns or anything about anything like that, because it's like I know what I'm getting into, and I've dealt with this before. And it's just kind of like, just kind of nod your head. Like I know I can remember when my grandfather or my uncle or something, I'd be at family gatherings when I was a kid, and and Aaron Clary probably knows this. Like you see the old man at the end of the table, and like whenever like the ladies are like talking or like people are having their kind of like back and forth, the guys are just like this, like, and they don't say anything, right? They're just because
they're just trying to. They're just
really pointless.
They're just trying to get to the couch. That was
exactly.
the goal. Was it like go
live
and pass out on the
yeah,
couch?
that sounds very important.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Just blow it off. But I want to also point out that like she was saying that like she was coming up with these stories where she was like on like an airplane, and how certain people on airplanes will like conflict with each other. And I think we saw this sort of pick up more during the COVID years, and really, I guess, kind of now too. But I've been traveling quite a bit since 2021, and I've seen this happen probably a handful of times, where some guy in a Trump hat or some guy in who looks like he's a granola crunching liberal from Portland, Oregon. They have words with each other. And I think that right now, because we kind of live on the internet, that we think that everybody shares our echo chamber kind of thing, I guess. And so when you take those people and you put them in real life, they have to go from that sort of digital existence, and now they're seated next to a guy who probably is like ideologically opposed to them in some way. And then they lose their shit, right? And I think that you're seeing more of that, like say on airplanes. I think maybe like the family gathering at like Thanksgiving is probably one of those as well, where our expectations of one another in real life is like the same expectations that we have like online and in echo chambers and stuff. Like when I went to go do a certain talk show that I'm not allowed to talk about last week, I that was made very real for me because I think what happens is we get accustomed and I guess acclimated. We get acclimated to being online and listening to our own viewpoints and like being able to shout people down online. And then when you get into like an airplane, then you go into John Fitch mode, right? You have like, it becomes a conflict. And I think people are like maybe overly confident about their ideological position to the point where they're willing, I think they're more willing to engage in not necessarily violence, but like crosstalk, hostility, I guess, if somebody opposes their kind of ideological bent. And I think in real time right now, we're seeing sort of this this effect of living our lives online and then having to go into the real world and meet with people and talk with people who don't share that same echo chamber. And there's this, I think it's almost this entitlement. I find this is more for like older people. And I mean older in the sense of like, Cappy's age, of course, but like 40-ish on up, I guess. And it's this need to sort of be heard in real time. And that leads to like stupid conflicts and just, add alcohol and everybody turns into an asshole.
Yeah. I think it's a big part of it is people are online so much. They don't actually talk to people in the real world. So they're in these little echo chambers. Most of what you read on Twitter and Instagram and see on whatever, TikTok, you walk out and talk to people in the real world, like they have no idea what's going on with that stuff.
it's like that. It's like the effect. Like you wouldn't say that to my face if you saw me like face to face, but you'll talk shit all day long when you're online.
Well, even the topics. Some of the
people
topics
will talk shit in real life now.
Even some of the topics, like I had dinner with some friends for Thanksgiving. It was a non-family thing, and just little topics you could say that are all over Twitter, all over the internet, like they've never even heard of because they're living a life and they're not online. They're not doing those things. They're traveling or doing their job or whatever. So it's just, even if they align politically, like on the left, like they don't understand or haven't heard of any of the things that are going on.
Yeah.
And the complaints they have are still complaints that are anti-left, really.
I think it's funny is like people feel like they have to be knowledgeable about stuff that they don't actually even know about. Like it's like put upon them to be, hip to the kids' latest, interests. Like when I was on a certain talk show, a certain bald-headed talk show host, the guy didn't know who Andrew Tate was. It was the first time he was ever sort of became aware of it. And of course, he's just becoming aware of it by like 30-second TikTok clips. But I'll tell you what, everyone on his staff who are Generation Z, they knew goddamn well who this guy was. So it's also, I think maybe it's a generational thing, but it's also, I think, it's this need to sort of like feel like, oh, I already knew about that, but you don't. You're just like trying to keep up.
I've noticed people who have like really full lives offline don't pay attention to a lot of the stuff online. Like the term woke, like all of us, we understand the term woke. We run into that woke all the time. I mentioned that around certain circles. They have no idea, never heard of the term. They have no idea what it is.
Right. Yeah. And you have to explain it to, have you ever tried to explain what woke is to someone?
Yeah. That's not easy to do.
I'm like Cappy. I'm still trying to learn some of these terms.
Yeah.
Like what's based mean? I don't get it.
I would say because Roll keeps picking on me because I'm old. It would definitely be an age thing where am I not coming in well?
No. I'm older than you.
I know, but I would say 40 plus. You're gonna be less inclined and you're just gonna shut up and make mom happy and go
nod your head.
Along. Right, nod your head. But man, the younger generations and a lot of people who aren't necessarily younger, there's so many people now where it's their politics is the only thing they really got going on.
Yeah.
That they almost need this opportunity to, they got to show their credentials. It's really important to them, and they got to prove other people wrong. And that's where it's just like, and that's why even there's times where I'm like, I nod my head, like, I can't believe you said that on the internet. Like, yep. And a lot of it really is, make mom happy. You're not there, for you or to smite your brother or to prove your uncle wrong. So in an ironic sense, I'm almost the opposite of what you guys are used to, where I just like, yep, you're right, and just, which pisses them off even more. But it just isn't worth it. That's not the time and place. But for some people, that's the only time and only place for their politics.
No, that's one of my strategies for toxic family members or friends is you agree and amplify with whatever, so you just avoid the argument altogether.
Yeah, that's what I've always done. I had when I was trying to think of circumstances, I thought of my former wife's sister-in-law. She had this toxic, narcissistic, and that word gets thrown around too much, but she totally was a narcissist. She had the sister-in-law, and everyone in the family absolutely hated her. She was an epic bitch. And so what I tell my now ex-wife, because she would get worked up over this chick at any kind of family get together. And I just say, hey, look, just don't talk to her. You don't have to talk to her. And if she talks to you, just be cordial with her and go, okay, yeah, oh, interesting. And then just move on. There's no need to engage in with some of these people.
Yep. You don't win anything.
No,
I'm kind of fortunate. My family's got this stuff together. The only complaint I got is driving all across big, large states and flying here and flying there. And they're like, what kind of perturbs me, it's like, do you want to come to Vegas for winter? Do you think it's cold? It's cold in Minnesota and Wisconsin. You guys want to come down? Oh no, we can't. That starts to get tiring. But aside from that, no, I'm quite fortunate that everyone kind of gets along when we go to our family gatherings.
Yeah, that's it. I was telling Paul that before the show. It's like I don't have a lot of experience in this because I had a great childhood. I have a great family.
Yeah,
that's because I was afraid you're going to beat them up, Fitch. That's why everyone's really polite to you.
I was the runt in my family for a long time.
Oh, here we go.
Paul
Benjamin's here.
What up? Okay, we can start the show now, guys.
Well, maybe I'm sort of hoping here because right now I think I picked the worst topic ever because
why everyone's like, screw it. What else?
Because everyone here is like, well, I don't know.
I don't think. I think you actually picked a very good topic for this one because it's a lack of social skills for sure. I'll tell you that. It's also, I think, the way we do family now is a whole lot different. If you look at the millennials to Gen Z right now, imagine this. Imagine what the conversation is going to be like if like you grew up in like sort of a polycule or like your parents are like polyamorous or something like that. How does that go down at Thanksgiving? I don't think people have this. I think we've generation after generation right now. If you look at like the latter half of the millennials and all of Gen Z right now, this is a generation that has been acculturated and socialized online. And you're looking at people who are like their family is whoever's in their Reddit group, right? Their family is whoever their group of people that they know on Instagram or Twitter.
Their gamer squad.
Exactly. Their Twitch or whatever their raiding group in World of Warcraft or League of Legends or whatever the hell it is, right? That's more of a family to them. Like that interaction between them seems more real than like the people that they actually are blood related to. I'm wondering if that's like going to be something that we're going to have to deal with sort of like as human beings in the future.
Absolutely.
Definitely. It's going to be less about
changing the fabric of communication
online.
Sure.
Yep. It seems like they want families more broken up and more isolated. The video in the beginning that Paul showed, you say, "Oh, that kid's an asshole," or "His family's messed up." Like, there's a lot of things that went on to create that scenario in the first place. And even if that kid is a total asshole, like he came from somewhere, someone made him. There are actions
That's a good point.
Lacks of actions that happened to create that kid and that attitude. So he was probably not raised by his actual family. They were probably out working, slaving away, paying off loans. And he was raised by television. He was raised by teachers. He's raised by outside influences other than his actual family. And then he gets to a certain point where like he doesn't identify with his family. And then he's flipping tables over and they're throwing turkeys at each other.
Yeah. No, Fitch hit it. The younger generation, because they are replacing. There is no family. It just isn't. And if there is a family, the father is not participatory, or he's just this ballless sack of filth. He's not around.
Or the mom won't let him be around.
Yeah.
Well, no, and all that. But in order to have whatever your Thanksgiving meal, your Christmas meal, you need to have a family there. And if your family isn't there, heck, go back to the 70s and 80s, just by simple divorce. I mean, I had plenty of, you Christmas at your dad's, Christmas at your mom's, and that was light. You go in now where these kids are claimed, oh yeah, you have a mental disorder, and that is your defines you, and you're an environmentalist, and that defines you, and you're a feminist, and that defines you. I don't even think it's congruent with having a Thanksgiving dinner with a family, whatever weird mutated version of family that is. But going forward, I mean, I don't think you're going to have. It's going to be a rarer and rarer thing. Where
because the nuclear family is not.
Yeah, because the nuclear family is going away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and so I mean, I want to open up here with a Bible verse, guys. I know.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah.
The most savage mania. I'm the last person to be doing a Bible verse, but I think it's good. Like I came across this, and was like, yeah. So like because there's a tendency for people to feel guilty and to want to put themselves in toxic situations every year with family that is maybe not functional, right? Like there's people have functional families and decent whatever get-togethers, but there's a whole number of people out there that have really dysfunctional families, and the get-togethers are ridiculous. And there's this feeling of obligation that you have to put yourself in that situation. Like, your toxic father or mother that, beat the crap out of you your whole life, but you got to go see her on Christmas, or what, because she's your mother, and stuff like that. And that is absolutely bullcrap. And it's interesting. It gets pushed forward by a lot of traditional conservatives who apparently don't read the Bible. So I love just getting them throwing their own stuff in them sometimes, because I think the Bible is useful, actually. Whether you're Christian or not, I think it's actually very useful. I'm Christian, by the way. Boom. All right, so here is the prescription from the Bible. Okay, Jesus said it. I think it was Matthew something. You guys can let me know in the chat what you think. But if your brother sins against you, go and confront him privately. If he listens to you, you have won your brother over. But if he will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church, which moral leadership of the time, but you can pick your own, right? And if he refuses to listen even to the church, regard him as you would a pagan or tax collector, which means, as somebody that you're not really going to, boom. Anyways, you're not really going to associate with. So, I mean, it's not even necessarily in a biblical sense, this obligation. There it is, Matthew 18:15. So even, if you're being guilted into seeing people who have been toxic in your life and who can't sit down and at least come to some sort of agreement to not be toxic going forward and actually have some sort of conversation, right? Like, you're not obligated to continue to see those people. If somebody is a bad influence on you, if someone is a bad influence on you, you find yourself ruining every holiday by going over there, suffering through dinner, you know what I mean? Having to deal with somebody's toxic crap. You just don't have to do it. And as a man, because we're talking to men generally here, you're on your own mental point of origin. You make your own family, make your own way. You have your own friends. You do your own things. And if you find yourself by yourself, you probably need to expand your social circles. I'll tell you what, anybody who was local and friends of me who didn't have a place to go could always come over. You know what I mean? If they wanted a place to go and have some dinner and chill out, because it's a non-toxic environment. And so I think that's where we need to put some boundaries and standards out there. And just I thought we'd start off with that, because that's not even, talked about. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, how do I suffer through? And some things you will suffer through because you accept the person for their shortcomings and their political views or whatever. It's not that important. Mom's going to say something weird. I'll deal with it. But, and I'm emotionally and mentally stable and on my fundamental point of origin. So I don't care what mom says. If it's weird, we're just all going to have a good time anyway. And that's fine. But if it's to a point of toxic fights, arguments, problems, dick in the mashed potatoes, throwing the stuffing across the room kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to show up there. Anyway, I just thought that would be.
Yes, we have found a dick in the mashed potatoes.
We found it.
That would be a cause for.
Okay, whose dick?
I hear you, Paul. It's I would throw this one out there too. Is that like, I get what you're saying, and I've dealt with that several times as far as like family is concerned. As you guys know, it's like my situation with my sister-in-law has always been a little bit stressed, but it's sort of like, hi, it's like through gritted teeth kind of thing. I think there's I think when we talk about like when we have a rough like Thanksgiving, or when people of differing ideologies or political stripes or whatever get together, that they're going to necessarily fight over politics or ideology, but then there's also shared history too. So it's not just about you think the wrong thing. It's like you you're finally coming to the dinner table with this person who you're like, yeah, fuck this guy 364 days a year instead of, and then this is the three, and so on, except for on Thanksgiving, and now we can actually have it out kind of thing. And so there's also going to be that back. I've actually talked about it, not necessarily that particular scripture, but like I remember when certain let's just say evangelical Christians would say, well, you need to forgive them for what they've done and blah blah. And it's like I've discovered that the idea or if you go, hey, I've forgiven you for when you basically fucked me over, because what that is it's presuming guilt, right? So if you go, don't worry, it's all good, it's water under the bridge, I forgave you for when you fucked me over, essentially. And so people who are like, say, hey, I'm not in the wrong here, you're the one that's in the wrong, and so then it reheats that whole thing again, just because you were big enough to quote unquote forgive and forget kind of thing. And actually just bringing up the fact that you're like, oh, it's okay, I know, remember that money you owe me, don't worry about it anymore, I understand what was going on with you back then, and I understand things were really rough for you and stuff, so I forgive you. And it's like, if the person doesn't feel like they did anything wrong in the first place, your quote unquote forgiveness, whatever that entails, religious or otherwise,
forgive them all the time.
It triggers them to go, hey man, you're the asshole, not me. And now we go and fight.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and that's another thing is like your emotional and mental self-control and well-being. Like I can't be thrown off. And this is a big thing. And a lot of you guys that are listening to this really need to hear this shit, I think, because we used to go through a rite of passage at some point, and that was breaking away from our parental figures. A big part of that rite of passage, I think it was becoming a man, become a whatever. And, and part of that is just, you are no longer in your parents' frame, in your mom's frame, in your nuclear family's frame. You're now a man, and you're in your own frame, and you make your own family, you make your own way. And so many people, I'll use myself as an example. My mom still doesn't know what I do for a living. Okay. Because I'm not a teacher. So she was a single mom for about half my life. My biological father is very dysfunctional and psychotic, unfortunately. And so, she's a good mom. She's just not a good dad, right? And so, being not a good dad, she was trying to raise me to be the very nice beta person that could never harm a woman emotionally. Of course, never be attractive to a woman either, but that's another story. And to be in a quiet sort of, me making more money than her, for example, would be like, was almost like threatening in a way, like, oh, and then, so anything I did, she thought I should become a teacher because I worked in the school system when I was in college and I was good at it. Right. So she thought that's what I should do. The idea of me going to the military was a bragging right for her, and she's proud of it. It's not like she's not proud of it, but she hates it, at the same time. And then the idea of me being an entrepreneur, doing anything entrepreneurial, she absolutely hates it. Even though she can't figure out or comprehend how I make more money than the rest of my family. She doesn't understand it. You know what I mean? And she's very entrepreneurial. She had to be herself, so she did well, but she she wants me to be this beta-tized teacher. So in the framework of my family and my mom, she had me in a role, and that role was the nice kid who couldn't hurt a fly, and who would never go on several deployments and murder people and, never, you know what I mean? And so I'm the nice kid, right? And that's what I'm supposed to be. And I'm not going to be this successful male, right? Which is, of course, negative connotations of masculinity there. I'm going to be this thing, and me not fitting that messes up her worldview of my role. Now, I used to let that affect me. At family events, she would go, like when I was getting into real estate, she'd go, oh, geez, that's hard, Paul. Are you sure you want to do that? She would be like negative. Do you know what I mean? Like to my attempts at success in doing stuff. And it used to make me so angry. I get mad at her. Like, why is she trying to sabotage what I'm trying to do? I stopped being angry at her because I stopped caring about her opinion. Like, I realized somewhere in my 20s, look, wait a second. She's my mom. She loves me, but her opinion doesn't matter. She's not in charge of me anymore. Her opinion is not objective. It's a role based on a family dynamic that she was leaning towards to make herself feel safe and doing the best she could, but it had nothing to do with my success or what I need to do. And I just need to do what I need to do, and she'll deal with it and accept it, which is of course what happens. And she still doesn't want to really fully know what I do. She doesn't fully understand it. She sees my posts. She's accepted them over the years, and it doesn't matter. I don't care. And then she's had negative things or those passive aggressive, oh, are you sure you really want to do that kind of comments? They don't affect me. I just laugh and I go, no, probably not, but who knows? We'll see, like whatever. I don't care. And that's, I think, people need to do.
That's a good point. I think the laugh and chuckling at it, the amused mastery tactic is a great way to deal with toxic people, I think, often. If you can appreciate the absurdity of their position and their point of view and just kind of laugh it off, that works wonderful.
I'm glad that you joined today, Paul, because for a minute there I was thinking no one else would have a toxic mom story. my mom, bless her heart, she volunteers for the local Republican office, so all she ever does is talk politics. Whenever I see her, she's talking about what the candidates are doing and the local Democrats are backstabbing us. And
my mom was a politician too, worked on several campaigns, actually just got an award like a week ago for service in my local area. So 73 now, but so dude, our moms know each other or something, right?
Probably. Yeah. And so, but the funny thing is when I talk to my mom is so self-centered, so all about what she's doing that she's not listening. She's not listening to anything that anybody else is saying. She'll ask you, oh, hey, how was your week or whatever. And then you go start telling her. And she's just thinking about how she can tell you about her week. She's not listening.
Right.
So I've come to terms with that. Yeah.
That's the opener.
Yeah. I've come to terms with that. And I'm just like, you know what, Mom, why don't you tell me about your week?
Yeah. And so that, what that's called in therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, it's called radical acceptance. And that's where everyone can take a lesson here. It's a really good concept, man. Like I use it all the time. I use it with my clients. You stop trying to change other people and you just radically accept who they are, for better, for worse or whatever. It doesn't mean that you don't have boundaries with people when they're crossing them, but I'm not going to make a small problem bigger. Like when my mom says something that's, not exactly fitting my frame or my identity of what I am or what I do. Like I don't take all that stuff seriously. You just stop caring about the little things and you just accept her for who she is. You probably were less frustrated with your mom, when you just decided to do that. You know what I mean?
It's a principle of embrace the suck.
Yeah,
it is. I mean, you're military. You know what that is. Embrace the suck. This sucks, but you got to nut up and go and do it. And thug it out. That's
and learn to laugh at it too. That was another thing. In fact, one of the predictors back when we were doing LERS selection, because I'd help select new people for teams and stuff. It's like one of the characteristics you look for in a candidate is sense of humor. Guy who doesn't take it too seriously in a way. That's a coping mechanism that can be actually really healthy. You know what I mean? When you're trying to embrace the suck. So I know a lot of guys listening though have struggled with this, because I hear them and they DM me or I get them as a client or something. They struggle with being able to radically accept and chill, laugh about it. A lot of that stuff is just social calibration and frame and being that alpha dude in a sense, right?
So let me play a flip side here because I think this is probably I'll try to be the voice of Cappy here since he's sick. Like, at what point do you go? You know what? It's one thing to embrace the suck, and it's one thing to put out and tolerate.
You're not gonna do it.
Yeah. But at what point do you go? You know what? Fuck this.
Exactly.
And you're like, because I've been getting into it. Like a lot of people have been saying like, oh, this whole red pill, blue pill thing, it's because the government wants to keep men weak. And I mean, it's Andrew Tate keeps mouthing off about it all the time. And it's like, oh yeah, it's because I talk about sedation all the time as well, but it's like this idea that there's some sort of like grand Illuminati plot to like keep the brother down so that he doesn't get too strong kind of thing. And in some ways, I guess I can understand that. Maybe it wasn't like some grand plot, but it's certainly a usable dynamic. Let's just say, yeah, if it's not like intentional, it's something that is certainly there and available to use. So at what point do you go, okay, no, we're going to start a revolution and fuck this. I'm done embracing the suck. I'm done tolerating this bullshit. I'm done with your shit, basically. At what point do you like, is it worth it to go, does it have to get so bad for you to like sort of sack up and go, fuck it, I'm out. I'm not going to either deal with this on a personal level or, how do you start the revolution? I mean, as far as like, the great, hell, even the war that was fought for this country, right? The war of independence, right? From like, at what point do you go, you know what, fuck this, enough is enough? Or do we just keep putting up with the same bullshit because we're going to embrace the suck and, they are who they are and I can't really change them. So it goes from this sort of principle of, there's nothing I can really do about it. I'm just going to nod my head and go, yeah, whatever, because it is what it is. Or is it like, it's not, it is what it is. It's what I'm going to fucking make it. And I'm going to exercise my will on this situation. Like, at what point does it have to get so bad that it's not about like, whatever, radical ownership or whatever the fuck it is. It becomes like a radical, fuck this. We need something better. And we need to get enough guys together so that we can effect a change in the world.
Yeah. Well, when the benefits outweigh, no longer outweigh the amount of energy and sacrifice and negative stuff you're dealing with for going, let's say, to Thanksgiving with certain family members, when the benefits don't outweigh that anymore, that's when you start making other plans. And I tell you, I mean, I went through periods with my family. My family's very unconventional how we do things now because we're not this large nuclear family situation because we're broken. So, but we have a great time together now. And I take people on individual the individual relationship is what's important to me versus I guess let me try to say, like, people are doing what they're programmed to do so that they can feel better about themselves and so they can feel normal. I'm going to show up to Thanksgiving with the family so I can feel like I'm being a normal, good person. I'm a good chimpanzee. Look at me. I'm good for the tribe now. Boop, boop, pat me on the head. All right. And it's all BS. Like, you don't talk to half these people. You don't have they're all shallow conversations. I stopped doing that. Yep. I just stopped doing it. So what I do is I have real relationships and conversations, even if they're only this much. That's what's important to me. And then the rest I don't care about. And if I have to, I've had to set boundaries before because I didn't like the treatment I was getting at certain things from certain people. And I said, hey, I'm not coming out. You know what I mean? Because so-and-so needs to F and chill. And I don't feel welcome there when that person is acting a certain way. And then they get mad and then and then it's a tribe thing. Other family members will sort of, try to coerce me and then coerce the other person. You know what I mean? But I'm when I'm just sitting here going, listen, I care about you guys and I have individual relationships, it's like, okay, well, you need to chill and not act like, try to be more welcoming. And they have that conversation offline. So it's not competition between me and that person. You know what I mean? And I know that stuff's happening and I don't need to be a privy to it. All I care about is the results. I'm not going to be walking into an unpleasant, toxic environment. They can have their political opinions. They can have their differences. They can have their negative opinions or false or whatever opinions of me. They can even say those little things because they just don't understand that are a little sort of, I don't know, not disparaging or whatever, you know what I mean, about what I may be doing or my direction in life. And I don't care about those things. But if it crosses certain boundaries, it turns into a thing where now the energy I have to expend to deflect their bullshit is, not worth the relationships I'm having with people on this day. And I want to have a good day. My happiness is paramount. So like, I will take my chick and kidnap her, go someplace else. You know what I mean? If she's going into a toxic, and you know, this is any girl that's with me, is going into a toxic situation with their family, they're not. Like, that's the end of it. You know what I mean? Because I'm in charge of this situation, not you. And so that's it. You know what I mean? And it's been so much happier last decade or so since we've just been handling it that way. You know what I mean?
Paul, is this a hypothetical story, or is there like an actual?
No, it's very real.
There's like a one person in the family that sort of you just can't get along with. Or...
Well, no, we get along now really well, but there's, and I don't want to mention the persons, right? Like,
sure,
for reasons, because it is real. It is real, but some of the stuff happened around election time. Now, to be fair, like, I am more socially calibrated myself now. I used to not be socially awkward, but I used to be a little bit too much I don't give an F kind of a person. And I would make my jokes and say my comments and do it. And I just didn't care what people thought, in a negative way, though. Like, it wasn't actually a good thing. And so put me closer to getting off of deployments. And that was like, that's me for like 6 months. And so, you know, it was harder for, you know, certain, you know, members of the family, who was usually extended family or whatever, to deal with me. You know what I mean? But they also have there's certain people in my family that they're not very mentally or emotionally good or stable. You know, they're not like, they don't know how to treat other people. They're in constant competition in their head with other people. And, you know, it's more extended. It's not like direct, you know what I mean? And they just have to cut that shit out when they're around me. That's still it is to it. You know what I mean? And I'm the person of value that shows up to the events. I'm a person of value there. I'm not saying I'm the only person, but I just make sure I'm doing the right thing. And if I don't get my family to support me doing the right thing and expecting certain boundaries to be met, that's their toxicity, not mine. Mm-hmm. And so if I have to dump all of them and just deal with individuals, like, hey, I'll have lunch with my mom sometimes if I'm not showing up for Christmas dinner. I'll meet up with my brother sometimes if I'm not doing this. You know, if I have to do that, then I'm doing that, because my peace and well-being is more important than fueling their toxic BS.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
well, the vampires.
One of the reasons why I asked if it was one person is so I have this funny story. My family, my extended family, we have this big property up in northern Colorado, and it's owned within the family. And there's all this like headbutting over it, right? Like, who owns it? What do we do with it? All this stuff. There's a lot of money involved. And there's one person that was always sort of the catalyst of the toxicity in the arguments. And it was my aunt, my mom's brother's wife. And she is just, she thinks like anything anyone says is like a dig. And she's like going behind
takes
everything
back. Personal.
Yeah. She starts crap, starts rumors. She, misinterprets things. Well, she died this year. And amazing, all the family got back together. We're all cool. We're all on the same page now. We had a big Thanksgiving for the first time in like, I don't know, 8 years. It's like it cured itself when she passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cancer.
Well, and unfortunately, the tribe didn't ostracize her sooner, because that teaches someone a lesson. You know, and I'm not saying permanent ostracization, like we're hunter gatherers and she's going to die in the woods here. But just like, hey, your behavior is, it's not good for everybody. It's messing up everyone's peace and happiness and well-being. And so if you can't chill, you know what I mean, for one day, you're not coming out, like, period. You know what I mean? And you have to demonstrate that. Like, I have that conversation with people. I'm the bad guy who will have that conversation with people. Or I'll say, I'm the guy. See, you have to decide to be the leader. I'm the guy who says, listen, Aunt so-and-so is a dick. And if she can't chill for one day, I'm not showing up, period. So what's it going to be? And I'll talk to Aunt so-and-so. Hey, you're a dick. And so you need to chill. And she could get mad at me, try to make drama of it. Fine, cool. Hey, I tried to talk to Aunt so-and-so, told her she was a dick. She didn't like it. So, hey, love you guys. I'm not going to be there unless something changes. And then the coalition of everyone goes, oh, crap. at first it's Paul's being Paul again, crazy combat vet doing crazy things again. But then what it ends up being is they would talk to Aunt so-and-so and say, okay, can you just be a little bit less of a dick? He's been to combat, right? Like he's a little weird. Like they'll blame it on me. That's fine.
That's a good excuse. Oh, he's been in combat. Oh,
yeah. Oh, geez. You just can't put up with you being a dick all the time. When really they're just using me as a scapegoat. They hate the way that person's acting. And that's fine. I don't care. All I care is that when I show up, we're all peace and happy, right?
And that's part of the problem, isn't it, Paul? People live the lives they allow to happen around them.
Right.
If you have shitty things constantly going on in your life, you need to take a hard look at yourself and who's the one responsible for allowing those things to happen.
Right. Yeah. But it's amazing once you set certain just boundaries and stuff. The ostracization it's not permanent. It's not like we hate you, Aunt so-and-so, so we're never going to see you again. Like people are children when they act like that. You know what I mean? What are we, 5?
The older I get, the more I realize people never grow up.
Right.
People never grow up. Most people are the same 6-year-old they were like after having kids and I'm going to be 45 in a few months.
Right.
Like I've lived long enough. Like most people, like you watch them for a little while, you'll start to see that inner 6-year-old. You'll start to understand who they are.
Because they don't do the inner game work, though. And I go back to this all the time. Dude, you will revert back to the same person you were when you were 6 years old if you didn't learn more adaptive measures of handling those emotions. You know what I mean? And to learn those adaptive measures, you have to actually do some work on your inner game. That's things like the meditation, the journaling, the walks, the getting rid of the trauma, talking to, whether it's a really good bartender or a really good therapist, talking to the right people. Do you know what I'm saying? And working through and coming up with alternate means of behaving versus how you behaved when you were 6. And so if you don't evolve that, you know what I mean? You're going to be the same person. Most people don't, right? Most people are fine until something happens, and then they revert to their level of emotional maturity with that incident. And it could be, hi, I'm 5 years old right now. I'm never going to talk to you again. Wow. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow. Whatever.
I'm just kind of confused at how hard of a problem is this where, and I know I may sound arrogant saying this, but if you know you're right, what do you care that they're wrong?
Yeah.
And it's only for one day. And I've had not direct relatives, but kind of removed or distant relatives we were not, and we could not be more politically opposed. And both her and I were civil towards each other. I think it was even a pleasant conversation, but going back to Paul, like embrace the suck. You're not even embracing the suck that long. You're embracing it for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Right. Is there no, I always, maybe I've taken a very flippant attitude where like, oh, I'm sorry, you're wrong. And I've looked at these people's lives. I'm like, man, it sucks. Like after a while, you get into an argument with people because you believe they're wrong on some key thing. If you're intellectually honest with yourself and you have integrity, you're going to be in line with reality, and your opinion or position will be the one that's correct. That person's will be wrong. That person being not congruent with reality is going to suffer. And usually they do. And along the same lines of like, okay, well, let life punish them. You're not going to punish them across the table on Thanksgiving.
Just reach over and John Fitch right in the jaw. You're now a verb, John Fitch, for when anyone kicks anyone's ass.
In addition to that, where it's like let the real world punish them. I forgot what it was. Never mind.
I get what you're saying, Cappy, because a lot of times, like the people that we care about, and when they are sort of living in this reality bubble, like they're just reality distortion bubble, right? And they have one opportunity to tell you about like that. Like, I think people see like family gatherings, like maybe like Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever. And it doesn't matter. Or it could be a funeral, right? It could be a wedding. It doesn't necessarily have to be those times, but it seems like those are opportunities for people of a certain, who are very kind of stuck in their ways, to sort of, I don't want to say reprimand you, but like to have it out with you. Like they've been they have a bone to pick with you, and they've been like waiting for this opportunity to do it. And this is their only time to do it. And so I think that when we actually get together on those occasions, we tend to dread those occasions because we know that those people are going to like say, oh, you're not living your life right. You're not raising your kids right. You're not doing your finances right. You're not doing whatever, X, Y, and Z. And that's their only time to do that. And then mix in a passive aggressive sort of argumentation style, I guess, or like sort of personality. I'm kind of like opposed to using the idea of passive aggressive as sort of like a personality type, as opposed to like it's a argument type more than anything. It's like I look at that as sort of a behavioral technique as opposed to like a certain personality, because personality will use passive aggressive, but I think that passive aggressive as sort of a modality, let's just say, of argument, it appeals to certainly an older generation who want to be heard, right? They can't get out of their chair. They can't do anything to improve their lives. But I think that the older people get, you'll see the more passive aggressive they become, because they realize that their control over their lives, or the power that they have over their own lives, is minimal at best. And so the only thing they really have left is what they believe is influence. And they can't directly tell you ought to do X, Y, and Z, because they fucked up. Their lives aren't that great in the first place. So what they do is they like, well, so-and-so did. They use third party examples, or they'll say they're talking about one thing, but they really mean another. And I think that that's really sort of expressive of a personality type that is very much like powerless. And so their only power is what they believe is influence. So like, especially like older people, like when you listen to people on like, I listen to, I'm a very keen student of like human behavior. I people watch quite a bit, especially when I'm at airports, right? And I'll listen to older people, and they raise their voices about 10 decibels louder than anyone else. And they're talking to their friend, but they're not talking to their friend. They're talking to anyone within earshot. Yeah. About how, the government has black helicopters flying over their fucking house or some shit like that. Whatever it is, it doesn't have
people on the phone.
Politics.
Sometimes they do, though.
They want someone to listen to them, because no one is going to listen to them in their isolated, echo chamber in some ways. I'm wondering, like, I'll probably be gone long before this happens, but I'm wondering what happens when the kids of Generation Z become those people raising their voices at 10 decibels in the airport, 50 years from now.
Minecraft.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that it's this want to I think the only thing that they have as far as influence over like the outside world is this idea that maybe somebody somewhere will listen to them if they raise their voice about, President Trump or President Biden or President Obama or whatever it is, right? Anything that they think is the most pressing issue. And that's a form of passive aggressiveness that, like, it doesn't even necessarily, like, I don't know these people from Adam, but like that they're trying to impress upon me their lack of control. And I think it's important to see those things. Now, the other thing about this, and it kind of goes back to Cappy's point, and really I think maybe even Paul's point as well, is I get to the point like when people tell me like, oh, you need to go have a talk with so-and-so. And I'm like, do I really need, like, you need to go have a talk with him and make sure, like he knows what's going on, or she knows what's going on. And I'm like, okay, maybe you guys do this, and maybe I don't know, maybe it's just me from like writing and being me for the last, 6 years. I kind of like think of things in like grand strategy terms as opposed to like winning the battle terms. And so when somebody says you need to go talk to so-and-so about this, and I go, okay, how is that conversation going to go? What are they going to say? And is anything that I say going to change that person's mind? So the guy that's like raising his voice 10 decibels in the airport, if I was to go say, excuse me, sir, I was, clearly you want everybody to eavesdrop because you're basically shouting this across a, LAX here. Right? And if I went there and I said, okay, you're wrong, and let me explain to you why you're wrong, blah, 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 blah. And I went, am I going to change that guy's mind? What's going to happen?
nailed it.
End result of actually going, is it worth the effort I would have to expend to express what probably somebody else wants me to express for them because I can articulate it better than they can? I'm not going to solve their problem. I'm not going to change their mind. I'm not going to do anything that's in any way going to make them, if anything, I'm going to piss them off. And maybe that's the whole, in some cases that might be actually the point. But what am I going to do? Am I going to go and change their minds because some random dude came up to them and said, let me explain to you why you're wrong. You're wrong. And here's a 2-hour dissertation on why you're wrong. It's not going to happen. Or it couldn't not necessarily be about you're wrong. It could be, well, I need to talk to you about a certain situation. Is that person going to change their behavior as a result of me actually coming up to them and saying anything to them? And in 90% of the cases, I'm like, no. And there's no really point. Like I'm Cappy at that point. I'm like, why? I'm want to go back and just chill, man. It's not worth my life's short, man. Fuck that, But at some point, what do you have to do to initiate change? What are you going to do to sort of change someone's behavior? Are you going to have an intervention with them? Are you going to change their mind? And I think it was I was on with Ryan Stone one time, and we're talking about these peer-reviewed meta studies and research this, and show me the cite me the sources, and show me how did you come to that conclusion, and blah, blah. They want some sort of concrete examples, and I provide that to them. And you know what they're like? Well, they'll find some flaw in it, or let's say, it was funded by this group, or it was done at this college, so it's not really relevant, or that's peer research, or that's the census, or and they're the government. They'll find some way to pick it apart. Yeah. But the long and the short of it is people don't develop their values and their beliefs and everything as a result of reading these empirical studies and really I've read 12 of these studies and now I'm going to form my value set based on no one does that. They listen to pop culture, they feel emotions about it, their parents probably told them something, they might have had a traumatic experience and that impressed upon them something about their values. People they don't form value sets and beliefs over empirical, somebody explaining it to them. People have to tend to come to it on their own. It's like when people tell me, Rollo, how do I unplug my father, my brother, my friend, or whatever? I love your work. I read your book. I really want to be a red pill evangelist. How do I help, change other people's lives? And I go, you don't, man. They have to come to it on their own. You can be there for them when they're at that point of crisis. You can ask pointed questions, but don't think that you're going to explain, explicate anything. So it's demonstrate, do not explicate. If you're always explicating things, people aren't going to change their minds. They're not going to do what you want them to. They have to think that they came to it on their own.
Mm-hmm. I want to echo that. And how many of you guys have convinced someone
yourself otherwise? By the way, I know you're in there. I have you blocked, but I see you, right? I see you, dude. Yeah.
I blocked him 15 times. It's like whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
Anyway, but just think about that. Have you guys successfully convinced anyone of something else?
Yeah.
They're
always ready to listen, though. That's
the thing is usually they've had to have some kind of crisis or been zeroed out, or there has to be But this is why I don't write books for women, ones that are truthful, because they're not going to listen. No, seriously, I don't write truth for women because they aren't going to listen to it. And
smaller percentage.
Right. But if you tell them lies, they'll buy that till the moon is around.
It makes them feel good.
Yeah, but it's the same thing where I'm not going to convince my cousin that Donald Trump isn't the worst thing ever, and it's just I don't know. It's also so petty. After a while, I'm not going to argue with you on this. I'm gonna have some food. No. I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna talk to Uncle Herschel.
It goes deep, guys, because I teach people how to fight. I teach professionals. I'm a 4-time world champ. I've fought at the highest levels. I can go in and I can be teaching people technique. This is the way you do this. This is the highest percentage. This is the way that this is done. Oh, well, I like this way better. I think this way is better. Or you show them what actually works, and then they'll fight you on it and not believe you that technique is superior to whatever they're doing. And then you'll go live rounds with them and you'll whip the shit out of them. Absolutely embarrass them on the ground or stand up, whatever it is. You'll make them look stupid. And then I'll do that, and I'll be thinking, okay, they're gonna come around and be like, wow, I guess you were right. Could you show me that again? Nope. Yeah. They'll write it off as oh man, yeah, I was just tired today, or oh whatever. And then I'll teach somebody else who's open to the technique. They're open to learning what I have to show. And I'll teach them and I'll show them. And then they'll use it on the other guys and beat the crap out of them with it. And they'll still just, oh, well, that's just low probability stuff. That stuff you should spend time working on. It's just, it's they get their ass handed to them.
Dude,
and they
so
still
funny,
will refuse the technique.
Side,
it's wild.
Yeah. It gets worse when tactics are involved. At least you can directly, with technique, demonstrate that they're effed up. When you start getting into tactics and there's a level that you can't go because you're not killing each other with, guns and squads and weaponry, it gets even stupider. You know what I mean? And people just dig their heels into their safe world theories and their beliefs. But here's a bold statement I'll make on this though too, right? Like, if you find yourself in a political debate with somebody where it's throwing your emotional and mental well-being off on a holiday, you've lost frame. You have no frame. You've lost frame. You've lost dominance. Here's a really interesting tactic, like that I do all the time. Guys screaming, I'm talking about Blackhawks, like in Rolla's example. Maybe I'd be like, hey, are you sure there's actually Blackhawks around your house? And he tells me he's certain. He's not going to listen to anything else. I go, really? That's pretty cool. Tell me more about those Blackhawks.
Yep.
Tell me more about Joe Biden. Tell me more about
that's a good way, man. That's another good way to deal with some of these people is you kind of go along with it and dig for more information and have them explain more things. And then you can ask, you can play dumb. You can play the dumb guy, even though you know a lot about the situation or know a lot about what that politics or whatever it is. You can play the dumb guy and ask questions, and you can lead them into traps, and then they end up shutting up. I've done this a few times to people. Well, they just get quiet and they don't talk the rest of the night because I put them into some kind of conundrum because they talk themselves into a circle, and now they're like, oh, whoops, I better stop.
Yeah.
Yep. I do that at work with coworkers.
John, that's exactly what I go. Sorry about that. I'm turning to step over you. No, John, that's exactly what I tell guys when they say, how do I red, like it's a verb, right? How do I red pill my brother? How do I red pill my best friend? Whatever. And it's like, you don't. You first of all, you live by example, right? That's for demonstrate, do not explicate. The second thing I say is wait for your moments, pick your battles, and ask questions. I have guys who are like quote unquote red pill parents, and they want to sort of impress upon their 15-year-old boy not to, make the mistakes that they made. And so I said, well, you can't trust me as a parent, and you're a parent too. You can't tell kids jack shit. They don't like if you tell a kid, like you say, okay, I'm going to impart some fatherly advice. If they pick up on like 5 or 10% of it, that's a good turnout, of what you were saying. But there's a reason for that, because people don't like to think that they are somebody else's tool, right? They like to think that they have critical thinking capabilities, and they want to believe that they came to those values and those the belief set that they have on their own, and not as the result of somebody who's like impressed it upon them, dad or mom or uncle or pastor or anyone else, or Andrew Tate, for that matter. They want to think that they came to that shit on their own. So what I mean, you could call it Socratic method if you'd like, which is just asking those questions, as you were saying before, like waiting for your moment and asking pointed questions. It's what I call leading the witness. So you say, well, what do you think about Kim Kardashian and Kanye West? Why do you think she's right? Like, you ask those things and you get them kind of fling. You have that conversation. It's one of the reasons. Like, if you look at my first, well, actually, it's pretty much in all of my books, but certainly the first 3 books, in the introduction, I make it clear that the book is not meant to be just something you just read once and put on your shelf. It's meant to be discussed and conversed about, and because there are still ideas that are in flux, right? So I encourage people to tell me I'm full of shit about factual things. Maybe you want to talk about like my hair or my fucking beard or something like that, you can go fuck yourself. But if you want to talk about points in the book, I'm happy to discuss that. In fact, I want people to tell me if they think I'm full of shit and why, because I've hashed these ideas out for in some cases, decades now. And so it comes as a process of asking the right questions at the right time. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like, pop culture. It could be like, why do you think Aunt Joan divorced Uncle Ray, or some shit like that? Like, you just have those conversations and you'll find out how most people come to their belief set and their value set, and then you go, okay, well, why do you think that? Like, just asking them, because it's almost like you're innocent, like they're the teacher, right? It's like play a sucker to catch a sucker and don't outshine the master. And you're asking them this, and at the same time, they're kind of questioning it themselves because of the conversation. And that's how you change people's minds, at least indirectly anyways. You can't directly like force people to believe what you believe, at the end of a barrel of a gun, maybe. But even that, it's just obligation. It's not actual truly learning something. There's a difference between rote memory. You know this. There's a difference between rote memorization and actually learning something, where it's like, when you're in martial arts, you're just learning the moves and stuff, wax on, wax off. And then later it becomes karate, right? It becomes something more than it actually is because you internalize it. The process, the wax on, wax off, is the asking of the questions and having the conversations. And then the karate comes from when people have insight as a result of those conversations.
Yeah, well, when they talk through it themselves too, it becomes their idea. And when it's their idea, it's great. What a great thing. Yeah.
Well, it's ego protection, right? They have to feel safe to be able to explore.
They want to believe they came to the conclusion on their own.
Yeah. It's literally an existential threat for them to have their ego, you know what I mean? The things that they hang their ego on. And you'll notice this, like if you start getting into logical, we could call it just red pill in general discussions by anything. You're like, what's a real thing about? And somebody will be like on board with your stuff, right? They'll be like, oh yeah, dude, I get what you mean about marriage and divorce or whatever, And then like you'll say something that hits their safe world theory though. And they'll be like, oh no, wait, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, so you'll see like in politics or something, like, right. It could be like, I don't know. You like this, you're like, yeah, I think the drug war is stupid or whatever like this. I think people should have the right to do what they want to do with their bodies, But then you're like, yeah, but I'm not so sure I want the government, you know what I mean, telling a woman what to do with her body necessarily. We have a real conundrum, which is there's maybe a life inside of her, but how can the government tell her what to do? And it challenges, right? And then if they're super like right, anti-abortion, which I'm anti-abortion, but if they're like, pro-lifers, right? That's their safe world theory. Like all of a sudden the objective parts of them shut down and it's like, no.
Yeah, then they have the emotional response. No, I watched the debate wasn't even really a debate, but I watched whenever I watched like Destiny go at it with like Jedediah Bila, or God, I don't know if you guys saw the Lex Friedman interview with Destiny on there, man. I kind of want to go on Lex Friedman now after that, because Lex Friedman was like really ready to fucking kick his ass after that conversation. But Jedediah Bila and Destiny went at it over abortion, and either side lost. They both lost the argument because they were both approaching that argument from an emotional perspective, right? Jedediah wanted to show pictures of like half-born babies and what that's the traditional conservative pro-life position, is they try to argue it from a moralistic emotional side. And from the Destiny progressive left side of it, it's like, well, we need to go show some pictures of, poor destitute single mothers because they had to have the baby and now they're like ass out for the rest of their lives. And those children are going to suffer as a result of that woman having to have, being forced to have that child or whatever, for whatever reason. And he's approaching it also from an emotional side as well. And I'm like, all you have to do to win this argument is say, what's the function of abortion? Why do women fight tooth and nail for it? Like you break it down into nuts and bolts and you just basically strip away the emotion. You say, well, the real reason for abortion is that it's the ultimate expression of hypergamy and it is a fail-safe for women's bad reproductive choices. You say that on a national television show,
oh no,
people lose their fucking shit. They lose their minds because they have that. Boy, I wish I could have that. They lose their minds when you say, I'm going to strip away the veneer of all this flower, religion. Conservatives, fuck you. I'm going to tear away your religion. Leftists, fuck you. I'm going to tear away your emotional, a woman's right to choose, blah, blah, blah. Men don't have uteruses. I'm going to tear that away. And I'm going to say, look, what's the latent purpose of abortion? Why are we still having this conversation? Why do women, young women, as young as like 18, 16, whatever, believe it's a human right in 2022? since 1973 is when 74 when Roe v. Wade was passed. We're still using the same vernacular. We're still using the same like tropes and the same like talking points that we did in the 70s. Why are we still doing that? Why is it still such an issue right now? Because the function is a fail-safe for women's bad reproductive bad choices, right? Women lose their shit. Well, what about men? No, we're not talking about men. You are the only one who gets to pull the trigger. And then the other side of this is like, I can point that out to the left, and then right, I go, well, Matt Walsh, if you're going to say that abortion is murder, does that mean that you are willing to prosecute women who have had abortions, or they'll say abortion doctors too, right? But are you willing to prosecute them for murder one? Because that's, if you're saying that it's murder, then you have to also follow that up. What's the consequences and the price and the punishment for murder? Well, apparently it's the death sentence in some states. Meditated murder, yeah. You're going to get gassed. You're going to get lethal injection, whatever it is. Like, are you willing to put women to death for murdering another human being? And that, what do you mean? What about men? What about this? But no. Focus on the goddamn point. If that's how strongly you feel about it, then you also have to enforce a punishment for that.
Well, and the thing is, it loses its practicality, right? Yeah, we're not dealing with practical.
You take the emotion away from it, and you remove all the teeth from any of this shit, and then maybe we can actually get started on actually finding something as a functional solution for it.
Well, and it's interesting though, like, so looking at it, something like that, it's like practically, now all of a sudden making abortion illegal and trying everyone who's ever had an abortion and any doctor involved for murder is completely not within the realm of reality or practicality. But people are arguing from that standpoint because of very emotionally charged, safe world ideas that they have in order to protect their own egos, right? And so they get into idealistic arguments versus practical solutions and arguments. And it's like, well, why do we do that? Well, we do that because we have innate drives that we're trying to protect. And it's interesting because Ryan's mentioned one of these on Twitter, and I've known about this for a while, that a lot of our morality isn't really principled for most people. It's in order to protect these innate drives and self-concepts, right? And the main innate drive everyone has, larger than survival, is mating. Yeah, and so is the ability to reproduce. And so a lot of our people's moralities that they stick to and cling to are to maximize their reproductive opportunities. And with lack of self-awareness, they don't understand this. I mean, the reason why women are, want to have the right to have abortions so much is more about maximizing reproductive opportunities for them.
Which is exactly, you can look at that from both sides, Paul. You can look at that from a conservative
and the other side. True. Yeah.
Destiny, like guys with, okay, I don't want to pick on Destiny, but guys with that mindset, like, oh, I'm in a polycule, right? I mean, look at what just happened with the FTX kid, right? And his weird, his it was Harry Potter girlfriend. Right? Oh God, like that's a belief set. That's like when I brought this up as well. I was walking around Lake Tahoe, as a matter of fact, with I think it was Justin Waller and Sterling at one point. I'm seeing these little yard signs, and it says, "In this house, we believe love is love, and no one is illegal, and the science is this," and it's basically this laundry list of it's essentially a declaration of beliefs for the leftist side of sort of the way their thought, their values, their thought, and so they feel like they got to go and put it in their fucking front yard, right? Now imagine if I was to create a placard and I'm like, say, this conservative Christian, and say, in this church or in this house we believe there is only one God, blah 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 blah, right? That is a statement of belief just as much, or a declaration of belief just as much as the yard sign for the rainbow wokesies, right? Yeah. And it's essentially a heuristic of beliefs, whether that's religious or whatever else. So it works both ways. And when we talk about like reproduction, I'm sure that like guys of Destiny's mindset think that that's actually the best way to go about, forming a family, a polycule or whatever the fuck it is. I don't even know how I can't even keep up with this shit, but it's a belief set. It's a value set. And it's value versus value. And that's kind of comes back to Well, Paul, our other Paul was like, we just got to call you Apex or some shit. Like we got like Fitch is just Fitch because John was John MLD. Now we got to figure out another nickname for you. But
Apex is easier than Come On Man Podcast.
Yeah. It's a long name.
Yeah. Lubricate my guns, dude. Gun dude. But by order, like it's easy to see the difference between, say, Jedi, Bila, and Destiny. But when you're sitting down at Thanksgiving dinner, those lines are a lot more blurry at that point. So like when people I'm already looking in the chat here, people think, oh, I'm pro-choice or I'm pro-life, just like Rollo. I'm like, have never on any podcast ever in my life have I said I am pro-life or pro-choice. Never. I've only ever said the reason why people make such a big deal out of abortion is because it is a fail-safe for bad reproductive choices. If I make that statement, people think I'm automatically pro-life. And I'm like, I didn't say that. I am just giving you the objective, empirical, factual reality of the situation.
It's a complicated issue if you want to get into it.
But here's the thing is, and a good more to your point, Paul, is it makes inferences because if you defer to like empirical reality or objective reality, it seems like an attack on people, left or right, that because you've made that statement, then you must be on team blue or team red. And it's like, no, I'm just bringing this out here so you guys will fucking think about something. Just as John Fitch was saying, he asked the right questions. Why do you think abortion is such a big deal? Well, it's morality. No. What is the function of it? Ask that question before you say it's a fail-safe for bad reproductive choices and watch what happens. You'll see people will defer to their moral imperatives or their emotional imperatives or their religious beliefs. And by that, I mean, it could also be the leftist kind of, wokesy religious beliefs as well. But it comes back to like, we want to say, oh, it's all about reproduction. Yeah, it is. But it's like, how do people rationalize that? What's the rationalization like, it's making your necessity your virtue.
When does the emotion step in and the logic goes out the window? That's when they're going based on.
Go ahead. I'm stepping all over the other Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, I was going to say this. It reminds me of the other day. I put out a tweet about not sleeping with other dudes' wives or whatever, and Rob says and Ryan like, they're like, don't put
sleep
your morality
with your wives.
Yeah, no, please do. But Ryan actually broke it down. It made a lot of sense, and that's one of the things I really appreciate about Ryan, because I'm pretty new to this space, and I told Ryan when I first met him, I was like, dude, if I ever say anything wrong, dude, just tell me, man, because I'm here to learn. And but yeah, he said, look, if you put your morality into it, he's like, we all have morals, but if you put your morality into it, then people don't want to actually have that discussion. But if you take morality out of it and you can look at things objectively, then we can actually have good discussions and come to good decisions.
Yeah, that's the main problem, I think. Sorry, I potted myself down. People are saying my mic's really hot today. It's like whenever it's like next to impossible for me to say anything about like Dr. Jordan Peterson, right? People think I got like a hard on for fucking Michaela, or I got like, oh, how come you hate him so much? He's professionally jealous. That's the thing that gets me is like, you can't be in any way critical of certain people, like, oh, because that's their emotional investment is in Jordan Peterson. It is in whatever their pastor says. It's in whatever their belief set is, and they will go to the ends of the earth to try to defend that. But you ask I think one of the reasons why the red pill gets such heat from the mainstream or from anybody who's just the uninitiated, let's just say, is because it asks the right questions that are the wrong questions. For even if they're not, like, it's like, well, you're wrong about that. Okay, well, tell me why. But it's not that I'm wrong. It's that I asked the question in the first place, and that question challenges your belief.
Threatening.
The question itself is threatening. If nothing else, the red pill asks the right questions, and it pisses off the right people because it forces them to consider something they never had any insight about in the first place.
Well, and that's the key to self-awareness, really, is to to know your own bias. We're all going to have biases that are, the bias is usually towards how you've been programmed, so what, your social conditioning is and stuff like that, or to what boils down to what you view as existential threats, threats to your survival, threats to your reproduction. And so like when I'm it doesn't feel right for me as a man to have women consider a baby not a baby until it's outside of the womb. That's a bias I have because that's a threat to me as a male and my reproductive, outcomes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I recognize that that's a bias I have. It doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make the argument wrong. But by recognizing that bias, I'm not going to cling to that idea in a safe world and then roll into next thing you know, I'm wearing a collar and railing against abortion in a way that's not productive for having a discussion or conversation and a good practical solution for it. Next thing you know, I got, Rola's having to ask me, well, you want to charge everyone for murder? And I'm throwing the Bible somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, cause I'll crawl right into this ideology to protect my existential threat to my ego. And when people are doing that, it's simple. So the question, because we're talking about handling weirdos on holidays, right? Like you just ask yourself, when you see people flip from, I can discuss this into emotion, that's immediately that I know that the safe world theories and ego protection is taken over and they're coming now from a bias that they may not see. They're going to believe that they're 100% right. And no matter what you tell them, they're going to dig their heels in further rather than have an open discussion and challenge that. They're not self-aware on that yet. So there's no reason to continue with that discussion in the manner that it's going. And that's when I turn into, well, tell me more about this. You know what I mean? Because there really is no, they're not asking.
I don't think people don't have the patience for that, man. They really, like most people don't. Right? And I'm not saying you're dumb or anything. You're not dumb. It's just, Cappy's not going to go and try to change anybody's minds. Right. He understands. He sees the forest for the trees. He understands, grand strategy. He just is it worth, is the juice worth the squeeze in the sense that, is the squeeze being the effort I would have to expend to explain to you why I don't say you're wrong, but you're incorrect in how you came to the conclusions that you did. And that's really hard because people they become ego invested in that. And you're right. That ego investment is primarily rooted in either survival or it's in reproduction. And so if I say, well, there's a red pill and a blue pill, and the way that you used to think about, women's nature and men's nature is all misguided, and here's a better way to think about that. That's like saying you raised your kid wrong, or you lived your life wrong, or your mama didn't raise you right, and that's really hard for people to accept. And so what happens, I love this, is like when people when some blue pill guy finally gets a girlfriend, he's finally getting laid on the regular, and he's doing it the way he thinks is the right way, which is, sort of this blue pill condition way. They get very, very self-righteous, right? They go, see, I'm getting laid. I got, I don't have any problem. I just sack up and do what I'm supposed to do, kind of thing. They're still very much blue pill. They don't understand it, but they get very self-righteous over the fact that they're doing it the right way and you're doing it the wrong way. And then later on, I'm crying to you because they just got in a divorce or they broke up, or the chick's like, fuck the hot guy in the foam cannon party in Cancun, right?
My favorite is the married guys that have been married for 30 years.
Oh boy.
When I talk about, legal marriage is just sort of not a good idea. They're like, well, I've been married 30 years.
By the way, so just
been married 30 years and I haven't had sex in 15.
Well, yeah, that's why I always ask them. I go, 30 years. That's a good solid run. How's the sex?
Yeah. Well, they'll defend their sex lives too because they're defending their safe
marriage is more
ego protection.
about sex.
At least I'm not having meaningless sex. I'm like, what?
What is the? Hold on, there's a super chat here.
I meant to bang every girl ever.
Sex with strangers, young, hot, beautiful strangers. How terrible.
At least I'm not thinking with a little head. Yeah, but your little head ain't thinking anything right now.
At least I'm not slapping her in her face and calling her names.
Get to those super chats. I know you got a few of them backed up there.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's do this one. This is the most recent one.
You could. By the way, you can answer any of the other ones in the chat too. You don't have to just do those.
Sure. Daniel Bori with was that New Zealand $10? He needs an official Rule Zero confirmation that 311 is better than Sublime.
Yeah, it is. 311 is better than Sublime.
There you go.
I'll defer to the musician here.
Acoustic Sublime album.
Gangsters who aren't into rap, but they like to smoke weed and they like to hang it. I get why Sublime was popular.
There you go. Danny J sent this earlier, $9.99 super chat. He says in 08, left for basic, left my finances with mom. Months later, mom spent all my money. After reading
Holy
Toxic
crap.
Parents was another way of being red-pilled with Rolos and Apex, set boundaries. Mom didn't show for Thanksgiving. And then he sent another one right after that.
Couldn't use
that in
your
your
school
life.
anymore.
He said another one saying, not even a mother can hold themselves accountable. The holidays suck, but I'll die on this hill. There you go.
But they don't need to suck, man. Make your own holidays.
Yeah,
Do your own thing. I ended up like my Thanksgiving was not a traditional like Thanksgiving, but that by voluntary choice. What we ended up doing was we went to a Lions game to watch the Lions like lose in the last 15 seconds, which was celebratory for any Detroiters. You know what I mean? And so we went and did that and had a great time. Went to a little
holiday tradition.
Yeah, holiday tradition.
Yeah, so I don't have my kids on the Thursdays are my ex's days with the kids, so she always has them on Thanksgiving. So we do our own Thursday thing. We'll go watch a movie. We went to Dave and Buster's, played games. We had some food there. We had our own day doing our own stuff, and the last few years we've had similar things. My parents actually came out and visited a couple weeks ago, and we did a pre-Thanksgiving like meal, and my girl cooked a speckled goose, and I cooked some steak and had all the sides. I have a client who owns a duck hunting club here.
That sounds pretty good.
And he said it's like the Cadillac of gooses. It's like the top quality goose. So it was nice.
There's different levels.
You just got to create your own holiday tradition. That's awesome.
And Fitch and like robot dogs with machine guns and speckled geese. Nice.
Bro, did you see San Francisco's asking for permission to let robots
How could I not?
Kill people in serious, dangerous situations. So sorry, guys. I didn't mean to
have to bring the robots
into the warning. Robot dogs are coming, man.
Robot dogs, man.
They're going to ask you for your papers. They got guns.
Terminator movies are here finally.
Yep. Are you vaccinated? Get back in your house, citizen.
John, John, you were talking about you don't have your kids on Thursdays for the holidays. So the way my ex and I do it is every other year we swap. So I get them Thanksgiving, but I don't get them for Christmas.
My family's far away. So even if I had them on Thanksgiving, I wouldn't have anything to do with them.
Sure.
So unless I am going to take a trip back to the Midwest over that Thanksgiving break, I'm fine with them going with their mother because they do have a big family here. And I think it's good for them to have like a big family Thanksgiving with a lot of their cousins.
Oh, definitely. What I was going to say though is, so every other year, I have my kids on Christmas Eve instead of Christmas, and it's been 8 years. I've been divorced 8 years. We've gotten into this routine. The kids and I are on board. My ex-wife's on board. It works. But my parents they will not let go the whole divorce thing. And so every year that I don't have them on Christmas, my mom freaks out. Well, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle presents? And I'm like, Mom, it's the same every other year. Like we open presents the night before. Like, what? Come on, let it go.
Yeah, we'll do something like that too. Depending on who's got them that weekend, somebody will get them the night before and then get them in the morning early.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it works out, but
work it out.
My parents, the divorce hit my parents harder than it hit me. I was happy, big relief off my chest when that happened, and so I've let it go. That was 8 years ago. I don't care what my ex-wife's doing, for Thanksgiving. My dad asked me, he's like, "So, is she even going to cook? Is she going to what is she going to do? Take the kids to a soup kitchen or something?" And I go, Dad. I let this go 8 years ago. You really spend more time thinking about her and what she's doing or not doing than I do. You should really consider letting it go, Dad.
I think that personal issues are way more hostile, under the hood hostile than politics and shit like that. I love how and by the way, right before the Thanksgiving, that's when you'll see articles on Jezebel or Huffington Post or even conservative, aggregate blogs, let's just say, it's always this expectation that there's going to be some sort of conflict between you and your in-laws, or you and your family, and it's going to be this like knockdown, drag out fight between red versus blue. And it's like, that's really not what most people fight about. They fight about like old wounds and old issues and like old resentments and shit like that. Is like, people could give two shits about like, you know, red versus, I mean, maybe that's in some cases it's that's an issue, but I would say probably the larger issue is like old issues that never got resolved, and the only time you actually see that person is at Thanksgiving, right? And it could be like, for instance, I'll just explain to you, like when we went over to my in-laws place, and I brought my laptop over there because we do a Zoom call, because not everybody in the family can be all together at one time. And so I'm on there. My in-laws are actually they're in like the same room. They're just using their laptop, right? And then it's like my wife's half sister's on, and then her real sister from, as you know, from like I think she was in Hawaii, or she was about to go to Hawaii or something. And just like, you know, the family's all on the Zoom call. And it was great. It was fun. It was fun to sort of catch up. But then there's these sort of awkward silences where you're just like, you don't know what to talk about. I don't even know who these people are really, you know, beyond just like who I see, you know, hey, how's the weather in Texas, right? But like, for instance, like I have in the back of my head that my mother-in-law, my mom, or my wife's real mother lives with us, right? I provide a place for her. I always have, I always will, right? Because that's, you know, duty a familia. And I took care of my mom, as you guys probably know, and took care of my dad. And I will continue to do so, because if I can help, I will help, even people that I'm not necessarily related to. But then I also have to remember that, like, I'm expending, you know, a good chunk of change to, you know, keep my mother-in-law, you know, happy, safe, secure, and, you know, in her, you know, golden years, I guess. When I know that my wife's sister is married to a millionaire who could very easily go and buy a very small house for her, and we wouldn't have to worry. We wouldn't have to, that wouldn't be an issue. But like, I'm there and I'm just like, okay, I'm just here doing what I'm doing. And it never comes up, and it's never going to come up, you know? And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do what I feel like I have to do. Like, this is my due. You know, I think if you want, here's my part of Rollo Tomasi's value set. I think family is something that you have a duty to, a dedication to, even if it's just like your extended family. It doesn't just have to be your blood relatives, right? And it's just the right thing to do. And I will, even if my father-in-law, who's very well set off, you know, he's well off, but like, if he was asked out, I would help him too. So if I can help, I will help. It comes back down to like mental point of origin, of course, you know, like you got to put, you know, enlightened self-interest. I can't help anybody until I help myself, but I will help people, you know, out even within or without my family. I think there's like, even maybe in the back of my head, there's this kind of like, yeah, I'm doing this on my own, and you guys could resolve any problems that we have like overnight, but you're unwilling to do that because you don't share the same value set that I have, and that she's not even my blood relative. She's your blood relative, you know, but it is what it is, and I'll continue to do so because I think that that's the right thing to do. So if we're going to talk about like morality,
juice is worth a squeeze for you.
It is. Good. It's worth the squeeze to me. So
me too. In a lot of those circumstances, you know, that's why I don't.
Well, there you go. So there's your Thanksgiving, your holiday present chat is, yeah. I'm not saying this is a prescription, but like if you want to know like what I value,
saying as a prescription, guys, you have to do this.
I rarely talk about
this is the only possible.
Only on this show, by the way.
Iron Rule 10.
We never talk about topics like this, so I have an opportunity to talk about it. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we should probably close out on that then. Insightful conversation. Let's go around, starting with John. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, go to johnfish.net, sign up for the newsletter. I do a podcast Sunday nights at 7 p.m. on the left coast. There was a PFL, Professional Fighters League tournament finale yesterday. I'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow. And then I'll also be talking about Andrew Tate versus Jake Paul and my opinions on that.
Oh, we are going to get into that.
Oh, I'm buying that pay-per-view.
Yeah. There are some other other notable things behind the scenes MMA stuff that we can talk about, since there's no Bellator or UFC this weekend. So there'll be some, you know, I've talked a lot about the dirty pool that none of the other media will talk about or touch, because I'm already been 8-balled or blackballed from the community of MMA. So I'm free to say whatever the hell I want to. They're not gonna
if that goes down, John, if that goes down, and I'm not sure it will, but they're saying it is, but if it goes down, I would love to get you down to Vegas with me and Mike Sartain and have like sort of a live stream, like viewership kind of thing.
Oh, that'd be good.
Kind of like, how Joe Rogan like talks about shit like while the MMA fight's happening. I would love for us to do that on like
Access. Let me know ahead of time, and then we can set up. I'll set up how to set up a seminar.
And by the way, the Billy Ray Cyrus
with a gym there too. That'd be a good trip.
Cool. All right. Rolo.
Let's see. I'm going to be on tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. That's my usual time. I'm going to get into a few things as far as I'm going to get into marriage a little bit because I know that Jordan Peterson is like sort of mouthing off on Daily Wire, and I want to sort of approach this from a different angle. I have been watching a little bit of Jedediah Bila coming into the space right now, and she's like the Jedediah Bila that I did the first interview with back in like March of this year is not the Jedediah Bila of November 2022. So we're only talking like 8 months here. So I'll probably be talking about that a little bit. I might get into some of the topics I talked about here today as well. But that'll be tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And then, let's see, I will be in Miami, by the way, on the 5th through the 10th of December. I will be there with Mike Sartain. I'm going to go on actually live from the studio in Fort Lauderdale. I'll be on Valuetainment with Adam Sosnick on Thursday the 8th. And then on the 7th, of course, Wednesday, I'll be on with Jedediah Bila. Of course, Mike and I will also be on Fresh and Fit various times. We'll probably do some after hours or get some interviews. I'm going to do the divorce show, by the way. People keep asking me about that. I'm going to be doing the divorce show with Myron. So I'll be solo and we'll just do some catching up as well. And then we'll also be on with Justin Waller because we're both personal. That's how me and Mike met, was through Justin. So we'll probably be on his podcast as well. I'm reaching out to the Iron Disciples. Those guys are they're a Christian sort of, I don't know what's called red pill, but I like them a whole lot better than I do like goofs like Ruslan or the rest of these dudes. If that's available, I might actually go on their live stream while I'm down there. Probably meet up with Mike Tang, and then we'll come back. Access Vegas will be on December 15th, which is a Thursday. We're kind of changing the time up a little bit. So I'll be back in Vegas about middle of the month. But in the meantime, the Spanish translation's just about done. I think I'm going to release it probably in January, probably the beginning of the new year. And then I've got another book coming up as well. I don't want to give away the title of it right now because Paul, come on my podcast, man. Paul already knows what the title is, so I'm not going to give it away. But anyways, that's what I have coming up. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on my channel.
Nice, nice.
Paul, Apex Mindset, Paul.
ApexMindset.net. If you go, I just did a 3-part series on how to handle conflict in your relationships. It's super long. Part 1, part 2, part 3 is close to 6 hours. It's for free. It's right there. Has everything you need, quite honestly, on how to handle these conflicts in your relationships. So watch that. And then in the links in the descriptions, you can get on my newsletter, which will give you a free guide on how to cheat-proof your relationship. So that's cool too. So that's some free stuff. I got my year-long seduction and frame community and group with a ton of course material. If that's for you and you really want to get dialed in this year, there's a few seats open left before the year ends. And then I close it for a little bit, restructure, dump more course material in, and then up the price. So if you want to get in on a year now and cheaper rate, do it before January 1st or, do it sooner than later. And then, of course, next month, I'm going to have an Inner Game Summit. So those people who already have my mindset course and in my year-long program as well will, have access to some of that stuff. And those of you who don't, you'll have opportunity of purchasing and getting in on that, and this will help you dial your goals and stuff and get yourself ready for 2023. So I'll be doing a bunch of Zoom calls behind a paywall, and it should be pretty good. So stay tuned for that. But if you just get on the newsletter and go over to my channel. Oh, one last thing. If you're not subscribed to everybody's channel on the panel right now, after this, do everybody a huge favor. Okay. If you came from outside, subscribe to Come On Man podcast channel. Okay. He's new here, but do that. Go to John Fitch's channel. Do that. Everyone's already subscribed to Rollo, hopefully. But if not, go do that. And then it would help me out if you do that for me too. It just helps everybody out. We get sort of, beat up in the algorithms, so that kind of stuff helps us.
Hey, let me throw this in there real quick. Paul is, we have John MLD has decided that he's wanted to, and nobody kicked John out. John left on his own accord. We're all still friends. I'm still friends with John. I'm still friends with Rich. So, regularly, both of them, I love them like a brother. So, but we will, as you can see, we've got Paul hosting today. We're adding some new blood to Rule Zero. We'll probably in the new year you'll see. I don't know if he'll host, but I've suggested that maybe Kevin Save will become at least a panelist in some way. We got Paul. We got who else did we add that we wanted to have on? I'm trying to think who we were going to bring.
There's one other person I can't remember.
Don't worry, Torsha will not be a host. But we're expanding. We're going to expand the Rule Zero family a little bit more. I think I always like to get new blood, especially young blood now. So I want to get Kevin Savo in for sure. There's a few other people I have my eyes on, but Paul was actually at the top of the list, so that's why Paul is hosting for us right now. And bravo, man! Very
good job,
good.
Man.
Very good, my friend.
Thanks. We got another super chat here. So this is Will. So he's the one that came up with the Rule Zero tracker. So he wants.
Oh yeah, that thing's pretty cool, bro. Thanks for doing that. I guess.
I was just gonna say.
I was like, oh, that's sweet.
I was gonna say in the chat. I was just gonna say is we're also planning to do an aggregate channel on YouTube. We're not gonna monetize it. It's just gonna be a collection of all the Rule Zero shows, so that if you miss the live stream, you'll be able to go catch the replay conveniently on one channel. It won't be monetized. It's just gonna be like just sort of an archive of our work.
Perfect. So Will, if no one in the chat knows web design, I would say hit up Fiverr. There's plenty of guys you could get to do a website.
It's a paid gig. My girl does my website.
Yeah, there you go.
She doesn't work for free.
All right.
She's got student loans to take care of.
My man, you pay her. You know what I'm talking about. All right. All right, guys, you can find me right here on YouTube. My weekly podcast is also available on all major podcast platforms. My guest on Monday is the lovely Morgan May. Some of you guys know who she is. Some of you guys don't. We're going to be talking about why we should bring back bullying. And Mr. Wrong here in the chat, he's livid about that topic, but tune in.
Is she a porn star? That sounds like a porn name.
No, she's not. She's not, but she could be. She could be. She's
hot.
Bro.
I would.
All right. In January, I'm going to start doing live streams every Wednesday and Friday morning. So subscribe now so that you don't miss those. All right. That's all we have, I think, this week, guys. Guess we'll catch you guys on the next Rule Zero.
Do a show about hazing right after that.
Perfect. Builds character. All right, guys. Have a good weekend.
Laters.